The V8 is calling and it cannot come soon enough. It looks like we will be getting V8s again in Formula 1, and I must say, this is glorious news. Welcome to the Racer Roundtable. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. So I'll be looking at 3 areas in this video: the sport, the teams and drivers, and the fans. So firstly, Mohammed Ben Sulayem has announced that V8s will return. However, MBS, as we all know, is known for talking a lot, so it's not 100% confirmed. But it's safe to assume that it will happen based on how the current power units have been received, plus how the car industry has changed since 2020 when these current rules were conceived. And the politics of this for the sport is interesting. F1 has been pushing sustainability and a reduced carbon footprint for years now. Moving towards a V8 engine with minimal electrification will be perceived negatively on a surface level. People will be asking, why are you increasing the size of the engine? Why is there minimal electrification? The thing is, in recent history, when F1 has changed the engine regulations, it has meant a downsizing of the engine and reduced cylinders. In 2000, V12s were no longer allowed, although most teams had stopped using them much earlier. In 2006, the engine went from a 3-litre V10 to a 2.4-litre V8. In 2014, the engine went from a 2.4-litre V8 to a 1.6-litre V6 turbo hybrid. And for 2026, we still have the 1.6-litre V6 turbo hybrids, but with much more electrification and a slight change compared to their previous engines. The proposed concept for 2031 is a V8 with limited electrification, but we don't know the displacement of the engine. Is it going to be a 2-litre engine, 2.4 litres, or stay at 1.6 litres? We don't know. So it would be a slight departure from the message F1 is trying to send to the world, as well as a slight departure from history. But to counter that, sustainable fuels now exist. So any carbon that will be emitted will have been taken out of the atmosphere as part of the production of the fuel. Very basic explanation of sustainable fuels and how it works in F1. I could be wrong, but that's basically my understanding of it. And by the time 2031 rolls around, the fuels will be more advanced, hopefully cheaper, and maybe road cars will start using these fuels more often. So that won't be a major concern in my opinion. So for the sport, I think it's a good move, and it's a move that won't harm the image of the sport. Now let's talk about the teams and drivers. I'll talk about the drivers first. The drivers will drive what they're given to the best of their ability and try to adapt. I'm sure they wouldn't be opposed to V8s, and they may be happy to see the back of the current power units. So drivers like Verstappen and Stroll will be glad to see the regulations changed due to their opposition to the current regs. If they're even in F1 by that point. Maybe Stroll will be because, he's got a seat for life because of daddy's money, and daddy's money gets you far in life. But the team's point of view is most interesting. The ultimate reason we have these regulations is because F1 was trying to attract manufacturers, as well as trying to stay road relevant as well. Mercedes, Ferrari, Renault and Honda were engine manufacturers in 2021, but by 2022, Honda announced that they were leaving. When the talks around the 2026 rules were happening, the VW group, essentially Porsche and Audi, were interested and involved. Fast forward to now, the engine suppliers in F1 are Mercedes, Ferrari, Honda, Audi and Red Bull Ford. GM are now involved as well with the Cadillac brand and will start using their own engines in 2029. So the rules achieved their goal to attract manufacturers. It attracted 3. It's 4 if you count Honda, who on paper didn't really leave, but behind the scenes, well, we can all see the effects of that. So you have to question, will V8s with minimal electrification be enough to keep Audi, Honda and GM? Audi came out and said that the 50-50 split between the engine and battery wasn't a requirement for them to join. It was more focused on the general rules and removal of the MGU-H. Honda love to leave F1, then come back, then leave again, then come back, then leave again. And the only reason they're here is due to these rules. They were planning on leaving even though they were winning with Red Bull, so you can damn near guarantee they wouldn't stay for V8s. Cadillac I'm not too sure about. If there's enough road relevancy, then I guess they could stay, or if they feel like keeping the Cadillac brand in F1 is the most important thing, then they'll likely stay. Ford's involvement with Red Bull is not 100% clear to me, but I wouldn't be surprised if V8s don't exactly align with their goals, especially since they're entering the hypercar class in WEC. So the teams you can guarantee are staying are Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull. I don't know if any other manufacturers would be interested. The 2031s will almost certainly be cheaper than the current engines, but is that enough to entice a major company to join? Would it be enough to see Cosworth return? And the messaging from F1 and the FIA seems to be that manufacturers will no longer dictate what the sport does. So they won't break themselves in half to attract an Audi and attract a Ford to F1. So the days of road relevancy being the main driver of a regulation change on the engine side seem to be over, and it'll be more so if a company wants to join, they'll join. We'll try to make a regulation that promotes cheap engines and we'll go racing. If you want to join the club, join the club. So for the teams, I'd say they're mostly in favour. Toto Wolff has even come out and said he'd support a mega 1000 horsepower plus engine. Audi could stay for the V8s and maybe new manufacturers could join the sport, especially if some form of electrification exists. Do you think the engine suppliers will be in favour of V8s, and which companies would you like to see join in 2031? Now, the fans. You watching this video right now. The fans will 100% be in favour of V8s that scream and make glorious noise, especially those that were watching from 2013 and before. Maybe I should make that 98%, but I'll explain my reasoning why. The V8 engine is my favourite engine in F1, especially the ones in 2011 and 2013, with the exhaust blowing and the Kawanda effect that was going on, the exhaust trickery. Those sounds were so beautiful, especially off throttle and under braking. I'm not saying the 2031 engines will be as loud as the previous V8s, but if they can sound better and louder than what we've had since 2014, then by all means, I'm up for it. I don't actually mind the noise of the engines since 2014, but they don't sound as good as the V8s from 2013. I've grown to appreciate them, and I don't mind them at all, but V8s are V8s. It's just a fact and something we can all acknowledge that V8s are better. But there may be issues with street circuits. Some countries or regions may have noise limits, especially at night, so some residents may not be pleased to hear V8 screaming in their neighbourhood. For example, Miami residents opposed the race due to the potential for noise pollution. Residents in Singapore, Madrid, Australia may be opposed as well. But then again, we did have V8s in Singapore, we've had V8s and V10s in Australia, so unless some laws have changed, F1 should be fine. So noise pollution could be a factor worth considering, but ultimately I think it won't be an obstacle, at least not a major one. So will the fans be on board? I think for the most part, yes. I do know some people were saying the experiences of V8s back when they were around is that you couldn't really talk to others, you couldn't really hear yourself think they were so loud, your ears would hurt. So maybe some people would be against it. But for the most part, I think most fans would be in favour. If the engine sounded great and similar to 2013, then they will only add to the experience on TV and at the track. If you're a recent F1 fan, you may have seen clips of older cars with the V8s or V10s, but watching the sport in that moment, back between 06 and 2013, knowing the drivers had a V8 engine screaming behind them and you could hear the cars that were on the other side of the circuit, is crazy. Hearing the pops from the exhaust when the drivers were off throttle, the high revs, the 7 gears, I think the revs went up to like 18,000 RPM. Like, it was insane. So I think most fans will not be opposed to the reintroduction of V8s, and it's an easy way for F1 to get most of the fans back on side. I think what we need now are concrete plans around the size of the engine, the revs, the level of electrification, and how the rules will work in general. By size of the engine, I mean how many litres, what's the displacement of the engine. It's going to be 2 litres, 2.4 litres. And I think there still needs to be a decent level of electrification. For me, maybe 30 to 35%. I'm going to keep it real. And there needs to be some freedoms for suppliers to find innovations and not be restricted in battery technology or engine technology. But V8s can only be a good thing as long as the chassis regulations are also good. The current cars we have now aren't that horrible yet, so that could be a blueprint for the 2031 regulations as well. Do you disagree with anything I've said? Would you be happy to see V8s back in F1? What kind of V8 would you like to see? And do you think new manufacturers would be interested in joining? Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching.